Hello friends, followers and fellow flight simmers. Welcome back to another episode in Microsoft Flight Simulator after a long break. Unfortunately, I had an emergency in family that required me to focus all my attention to that, and I was not able to record any tutorials or any videos at all, and I was only able to do one live stream over a weekend. Luckily, things are moving in the right direction, and that allowed me to allocate some time to record another tutorial in Microsoft Flight Simulator. As you see, we are with the Maddog MD-82 from Leonardo Software House. I have promised to record a tutorial with this aircraft but was not able to. This is probably not going to be the first video you have seen about this aircraft, but this will be my tutorial of this aircraft. We will not go through the exterior model, texturing. I think there are plenty of videos on YouTube talking about these subjects, and these are all subject to change because this is the only craft that the Leonardo Software House has, and I'm hoping and looking forward to see this aircraft improving over the coming weeks, months, especially in the visual quality department when it comes to textures and some of the 3D models in the cockpit, as well as the sounds. All those things are probably known by the developer, and the community has raised enough concerns about this. But aside from that, I think this aircraft flies beautifully, and it's a lot of fun to fly. So we will take a look at that. As usual, we are going to use Pilot to ATC as our offline ATC provider. We will be using a checklist that I found on flightsim.to, and we will go over startup, cold and dark startup procedure. This might not be as close to real life, but I will follow the checklist as closely as possible, and we will be on our way. Currently, we are parked at Basel Mulhouse in Switzerland, and our destination is Rostock in Germany. So Lima Foxtrot Sierra Bravo, departing from Lima Foxtrot Sierra Bravo, and our destination is Echo Tango November Lima. We'll talk more about the flight plan routing and simulated ACARS, where it requires you to download your flight plan from SimBrief. Unfortunately, it is not an online integration of SimBrief, but it works, so that's what matters. We are currently parked at stand 17 or gate 17. I haven't connected the jetway and just wanted to use the stairs and give it a retro look. And that's what we are doing today. So without further ado, let's jump into the cockpit and start talking about what we are going to do. Alright, welcome to the cockpit of the MD-82. Retro classic jet airliner. A lot of gauges, a lot of analog gauges, and a mixture of digital gauges as well. But I think, as I said, this is a fun to fly aircraft. We don't need that tablet. And let's open that co-pilot door. I wanted to open this too, but that will put the tablet outside of our reach. So we will keep the tablet here. Before starting to power up the aircraft, we will do our weights and balances to bring in our flight plan from SimBrief, which I downloaded into the folder. So import OFP, our departure is Lima Foxtrot Sierra Bravo, and our arrival is Echo Tango November Lima. Confirm that, and you should see the Iberia ICAO code and today's date, 22nd of June 2022. And this carries our weights and balances into the aircraft. So one thing I'd like to point out here is the default SimBrief profile is off on the weights by a couple thousand kilograms, and that causes some problems with the cruise level because this aircraft can climb based on the takeoff weight. So the sim brief might give you 35,000 feet, but the aircraft will warn you saying maximum flight level 33,800. So I ran into that a couple times. To compensate that, I created a custom sim brief profile and entered the weights of this aircraft and then selected 95 kilograms as the passenger weight, which gets me pretty close to what SimBrief is giving me. So right now, SimBrief is giving me a takeoff weight of 58.1 and we are sitting at 58.26. So that's within the margin and I'm happy with it. So that's something I wanted to point out. Anyway, after explaining that, even before powering the aircraft, we will go and request the fuel truck and request the power card. Fuel truck will arrive and we can continue powering the aircraft on and we will start the boarding when the fueling is completed. Start the aircraft. I think I should switch to this view to give you guys a better view of the overhead panel. External power available light now came on or illuminated, telling us that we have external power. Circuit breakers over here are modeled. You should check these to see if they are popped, because this aircraft also has failures. So that's checked. Before powering, we have to verify that the wipers are off. Right here. Landing gear is down. Spoilers or speed brakes are retracted. Flaps are retracted. And the engine ignition selectors are guarded and off, which they are. So at this point we can turn the batteries to on, one click, and then second click will rotate the switch to lock it in place so that you don't accidentally turn that off. So we have now DC power to the aircraft. We can arm the emergency lights and call the cabin for an emergency lights check. But we need the external power or AC power for the PA system or internal intercom to work. AC power off, lit here because I hit the button, so that's the initiation we get. Just wanted to point that out too. So now we have battery power. We'll go to the co-pilot side and turn our position lights to on. And we are ready to introduce external power to the aircraft. We have checked everything that we need to check, so everything checks out. And we will introduce external power one at a time. Left bus is on. And right bus is on. Why am I not hearing anything though? It's like the fuel truck is here. We will go ahead and start fueling the aircraft immediately. To do that, aircraft services, ground, and we are expected to take 4,200 to each tank and then 5 to center, which is literally like 0. So let's start refueling the aircraft. And when you go outside, you'll see the fuel truck. The weather is getting a little bit nasty. It might make an interesting takeoff. Alright, all that is done. We have external power and we are ready to start thinking about what else we need to do. While we are here, we'll turn the galley power to on. And we will program our flight recorder. Today is 0622. And our flight number is 2600. This apparently is the first flight of the day, and we'll go to the upper overhead, and test our fire loops for the APU and the engines, because we will start those, and this being the first flight, this should be done initially. And for turnarounds you don't have to do the fire loops. Test the cargo fire system as well. That checks out too. And we also go down and test the engine fire. Alright, master warning, master caution.
Right engine. Fire left engine.
Silence the bell. All is working. And the last thing is to check our lights by holding the button and then letting it go. The lights seem to work. Yep. So everything is good. We will carry on with the FMC and then we will start boarding the passengers when the fueling is complete. Programming the FMC. We'll take a look at the overhead, turn the windshield heat on, and we have to set the altimeters, but to be able to do that we need to listen to the ADIS. The ADIS frequency is 127.87. We'll go and tune that and listen to the ADIS information. It's already tuned or pre-tuned for us by our co-pilot.
Sierra 30 Zulu and SAR 358 at 9 knots. Visibility 4 miles in Lieutenant Train. 2,900 few clouds. 7,200 scattered. 10,000 overcast. Temperature 20, dew point 18. Current QNH is 1012.
012.
Departing runway 33.
That is set. And we have to set that over here too. Landing barrow. We need the weather information for our destination, and we'll just go to our OFP for that. According to SimBrief or SimToolkit Pro, the QNH at our destination airport is 1013. So it is already set to 1013, and our landing elevation, if I bring the Navigraph charts here, the airport chart for our destination should have the landing elevation, and that's 140 feet. So we'll set to 1.4 roughly here. And that's our pressurization system set. These lights, not sure if the standby should be eliminated. It says standby on, but flipping the switch will extinguish those. That's what I tend to do. And we'll do our tests for stall. Speed warning. And then ice system test. That all checks. We have a couple more tests that we can do here. Let's test it as well. Can check the oxygen flow too, which is working. And yep, I am okay with everything so far. Let's uncage the standby artificial horizon. 2 clicks will do. Here we can test the EPR. It's working. And we are good. We are ready to program the FMC. Before doing that, let's check our fueling. Looks like it is complete. We can dismiss the fuel truck. And you can start the boarding now. While boarding is started, we can also request the baggage cards. There we go. You started to hear the passengers. Now we can go ahead and start programming our FMC. Position initialization, we are at Lima Foxtrot Sierra Bravo. Gate 17, that should give us the closest GPS position. We'll select that and plug it into these boxes. This is sort of a Boeing FMC or Boeing style FMC where you see square boxes. That means it requires information from you. For the routing, that simulated ACARS, we just plug in Lima Foxtrot Sierra Bravo, and then our destination is Echo Tango November Lima, and we plug it into company route and it should give us the routing. We go to the departure and arrival. Oh, by the way, now we are expecting runway 33, and we can now go to departure arrival, departing runway 33 via LB7 November departure. And if we go to the index, we can select our arrival. We are expecting an ILS Zulu to runway 27, no star, it's a direct approach, but we have an OSGig transition. Go back to the route page. We can activate the route, but do not execute just yet. We want to check our routing to make sure we don't have any discontinuities. We go to the legs page and change this to plan mode, and we should be able to step it before executing our routing. Let's drop the range a little bit to see a little better. Get closer to the ND and step through our routing. There was a discontinuity, I guess. Let's check that again. No, there is no discontinuity. It's fine. LBAC, TTX, Nedo. It's not fitting to the screen. Hoise. Keep going, keep going. Alright, everything looks okay. And I'm checking the legs page too to point or see any discontinuities that might be there that we haven't seen yet. So far, it is looking okay. Oh, there is the discontinuity. So let's do this. And that should clean up the discontinuity. Cargo, air node, OSGig, and then final fix and initial fix into runway 27. Everything is looking okay. We can go back to the route page and we will keep it like this until we get our clearance from ATC. Alright, at this point we are done with the FMC for the most part. We'll turn the flight directors to on. And if we look at the departure chart, let's take a look at our departure and try to do our departure briefing very quickly. LB7 November, that's the chart. Our MSA for our departure is 6400. We have a 1900 or above right after departure, but not before. Oh, Sierra Bravo 701 at Sierra Bravo 701, turning right to LBAC, max 220 knots, and our runway heading is 332. So we'll set that heading to the heading bug, 332. And we also set that to the course because we have a VOR that we can use as a secondary navigational aid, 117.45. We'll set that here, and that should give us the DME reading and the VOR needle. We're good, so we will depart runway heading, fly until Sierra Bravo 701, make a right turn to intercept LBAC, and we are not passing 220 knots. So let's go and check our routing on the legs page. So we don't have any speed restriction here, so we should be entering that information here. Oh, wrong one. Let's see if we can clear this. Okay, so it's 220/ is the correct format to put the speed restriction in place.
you are seated in an exit row, you may
Invalid
require
entry.
assistance to cruise and
Interesting.
evacuation. If you are unwilling or have a condition which would hinder you from performing the functions
See.
described on the card, just please ask to be reseated.
Taking it.
All cellular telephones
Alright,
and other
anyway,
portable electronic devices, such as CD
we
players,
will
laptops,
use
and
the
must be turned off and displayed for
speed
departure.
bug
If
to
your
dial
seat
in
is required,
220
all
until we
passengers
cross
should be
L-back.
seatbelt fastened at all times while
That is
seated,
fine.
and any kind of the fasten seatbelt found is
And
for everyone's safety,
FMC is pretty
regulations
much
require
done
compliance
except
with
the
all other
performance
signs,
calculation
signage, and
part,
regular instructions.
which we will
Once again,
get
welcome
into here in a little bit. We have almost all the passengers on boarded. What we can do is we can fire up the APU and provide some fresh air to the cabin. We forgot to insert this though, so let's insert the information on our flight recorder. And it's getting dark. Let's get some panel lights going. And some panel lights over here on pilot side too. That's too much. That's the floodlight. This is the panel lighting. And same for the pedestal. We have the light switch here, so we can brighten up the pedestal just a little bit, not too much. And as I said so many times, texturing requires some more love from the developer to get this aircraft into a better shape. Alright, that is all done, and we need to contact ATC to request our clearance, and then we will do our performance calculations. Clearance delivery frequency is 121.905. So what we will do is we will momentarily go to the 121.905. We don't need the ADIS anymore, so we'll just tune in that and switch frequencies, and we'll do a radio check. Clearance delivery, good morning. Iberia 2600 radio check, please.
Iberia 2600, you are loud and clear.
Iberia 2600, ready to copy IFR.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my
Iberia
pleasure to welcome you aboard.
2600
Federal
is cleared to
regulations
Echo
require that
Tango
carry-on
November
items are stored
Lima.
prior to
Fly
closing
the
the aircraft
ALP-7
door.
and departure,
Items must be
then
placed
as
completely
filed.
under the seat in front of you
Expect
or in an
departure
overhead
runway
compartment.
33.
Use caution when placing
Climb
or
to
removing items
5,000
in an
feet
overhead
via the
compartment.
departure. Expect
1000
fire
initial
clearance
climb.
2 minutes
To
after
expedite the boarding
departure.
process, please be seated
Departure
as
on
quickly as
1 to
possible after storing your
4.1.
carry-on items.
Squawk
Take a moment to
5426.
review the safety instructions
Iberia
provided with the seat process.
is cleared to Echo Tango November Lima.
24.1 is departure frequency, but we need the ground here.
Climb to 5,000 feet via the departure.
Squawk is
Expect fire clearance
5426.
is 2 minutes after departure.
Let's go to the
Departure
transponder.
on 124.1.
5426 is plugged in.
Iberia 2600, readback correct. QNH is 10, want to contact ground on 121.6 when ready for pushback. Have a good morning.
21.6 is the ground frequency that we will need.
6 Iberia 2600.
Once again, welcome aboard.
We will tune out of the frequency momentarily. We don't have to listen to the frequency while we are doing the other stuff. So let's change a different zero frequency and keep it there so that we don't have to listen to the frequency while we are discussing things. So that's our clearance done. We have plugged in the transponder code. We are cleared up to 5,000 feet via the departure we have selected, LB7 November. And we are expecting runway 33, so everything checks out and we can execute and activate our routing. We can get out of the plan mode now into the map mode and put the range to maybe 20 to calculate our performance now. So performance initialization, our fueling is done, our boarding is complete. We can close the aft stairs, but for that we will need the auxiliary pump to on and transfer pump to on, which stands for a PTU in this aircraft, and we can now retract the aft stairs and you will see them retracted right here. This is a good time to go ahead and start the APU. To start the APU, start pump comes on and then APU master goes to start. We hold the switch at start until we see the RPM increasing at the top gauge you see there right here, and let go of the switch, and that message is telling us that the boarding is complete. Now we can
PA and emergency light test.
Emergency lights on.
emergency lights on, they should be armed. Interesting. Oh, armed, they said armed, okay. My misunderstanding there. So APU is starting, and we will have the APU available light on momentarily. There we go. We can put the APU on bus, switch the external power off, and because we will need APU air, we will turn the pneumatic crossfeed valves to on to provide air to the cabin when APU is online and at least ran for 4 minutes. In the meantime, let's go and calculate our performance. I need to check our takeoff weight. Our takeoff weight is 58,269 and takeoff CG is 15.1. I hope I can keep this in my memory. So performance, Lima Foxtrot Sierra Bravo, enter that, runway 33. Wind information we listened from Asus, and I don't remember, but it was saying something like winds are variable, so, and that's what Sim Toolkit Pro is showing, so we will just use variable winds, or what we can do is we can switch and listen to the Asus one more time. 127.87. See if the wind information is different in the ATC.
Information Tango 330 Zulu winds are light and variable.
Yep, same information.
6 miles in Lieutenant Ray.
Winds are light and variable. So for that we will just put 100 at 3 knots. QNH was 1012 and the temperature was 20 degrees Celsius. Our takeoff weight was 58,269 and enter that. Now we can calculate our performance. So that gives us a V speed of 140, 145, 154 and flap setting was 3.5 and flex temperature of 50 degrees. So let's put in our figures here. Zero fuel weight can be also obtained from the weights and balances page. Zero fuel weight is 50.221. That's plugged in. Reserve fuel according to SimBrief with 3.24. And scheduled fuel or block fuel is 8.411. 8.35 is what we have physically in the aircraft. So 8.35. We are expecting a normal burn. Cruising altitude is 30,000 feet. Cruise wind will take the top of climb wind from SimBrief flight plan. And that is 263 at 53 knots. Strong winds up there. And the outside air temperature at top of climb is minus 39 degrees Celsius. We plug it in here. That will give us our ISA deviation of 6 degrees, transition altitude 7,000. Takeoff, we know the speeds 140, 145 and 154. Those are set. And we know the EPR, so let's turn the ART off and takeoff flex, and that was 50 degrees. We'll set that here. That is also set. And what we will do is we will click here to set our speed bugs. They are now set, and set our FCP speed to 154, which is our V2. I have seen videos where they set it to V2 plus 10. I'm not sure which one is the correct way, but I tend to use what I see in the FMC. That is now done. Don't need the charts at this point. For the altitude, you need to pull the knob to arm it, and it will be displayed in orange text when it's armed. And we are pretty much ready for our pushback, but let's turn the APU air on and get some fresh air to the cabin before we do so. If you don't see these needles moving, you are most likely forgetting to turn the pneumatic crossfeed valves to on. So that's that. The flap setting was 3.5, so we will set that here. That's roughly 3.5, and then the takeoff CG was 15.1. That goes to the left side. 15.1 or close as possible. So that sounds about right, and that gives us our trim setting of 0.55-ish. We will pull the handle down to match these two grooves and line them up as closely as possible, like so. Maybe a little bit too much. And then we will set our flaps here as well. So that's our flaps and trim setting completed. And we are pretty much at this point ready to ask for pushback clearance, but let's pre-plan our pushback. We are expecting 3-3, that's a very short taxi, and I will show the chart and discuss the taxi routing here in a little bit after planning the pushback, but I know we need to face the nose to our right, so that sounds about right here, and we will back up a little bit more to give us some more room to take this turn. Alright, so that is done. Let's take a look at the airport chart to see our expected taxi routing or have a guess about it. So that's the airport chart for Basel Mulhouse. We are parked here. We will probably push back to Bravo, and then they will give us Bravo, and then Victor, and then Lima, and then hold short runway 33. That's the expected taxi routing. We have to cross runway 25, and I think we can continue here, or we might get a routing through here. Which way, I'm not sure, but sometimes Pilot ATC likes to mess things up, so fingers crossed. Alright, we are pretty much ready for our pushback and call the tag. Let's go through the checklist. We have done all the memory items, and before requesting pushback I want to make sure we set up everything. Position strobe lights are on, internal lighting is as required, external power is disconnected, I believe. No, it is not, it is still connected, so let's disconnect the external power because APU is on the bus. That's not disconnected. APU is on, emergency lights are armed, no smoking and passenger signs are on, windshield anti-ice switches are on, air conditioning is running, cabin pressure panel is set, MCDU is set. Performance calculation completed, init ref takeoff pages completed, parking brake is set, panel lighting as required, EFIS modes as desired, flight director switches are on, auto land mode. So this is something that you need to test prior to takeoff, otherwise you will probably not be able to use AutoLand if you haven't completed this test. That test switch, I'm trying to figure or remember where it is because I don't do AutoLand in this aircraft, never attempted one. But there is a test switch for AutoLand. And I'm remembering or thinking that it was on the pedestal panel. Applications test. They are working. We already contacted ATC. Antenna. Where was the AutoLand? So there's a test that you need to do for the AutoLand to work. Step trim. No, not there. I can't remember where that switch was. So let me know in the comments because I have never used it. So I don't know where that AutoLand test switch is. And we are not going to be doing AutoLand in this flight. So let's assume that we have checked that. VHF nav radios set. Could be here though. Oh, AutoLand is that is that the test switch? Yep. We need to tune to an ILS frequency to be able to test this. Let's not worry about this. We are not using it. Nav radios are set. Speed is set. Altitude select is set and armed. Speed bugs are set. Standby horizon is uncaged. Altimeters are set. Clock is checked. It is showing it's behind the yoke though. 646 UTC. TRC ART is set to takeoff flex with a temperature of 50 degrees. ART is off. Fuel quantity gauge is set, and zero fuel weight we need to set that over there. That's 50.221. It's not set automatically, so we need to scroll the switch until we get 50.22 or close. It's 50 increments, so 50.25. We'll round it up. That sounds about right. Okay, that's set. Landing gear giver is checked and 3 green. Weather radar is off. ATC TCAS is set to standby. So that's before pushback or before engine start checks completed, and now we are ready to ask for our pushback clearance. Let's switch to ground frequency 121.60, which is pre-tuned on standby. Ground, good morning. Iberia 2600, ready for pushback and engine start.
Iberia 2600, pushback and engine start approved.
Pushback and engine start approved. Iberia 2600.
Nice. Let's call the tug.
Cockpit to ground.
This is ground. Stand by.
Hex are coming off while the tug is connecting. All the fuel pumps will come on. We might not have any fuel in the center tanks and we might get a warning center fuel pressure low, so let's turn them off. We don't have to worry about that. Open the guards for the starters. We'll select system A for startup. Start pump goes off now. And the cockpit door can be locked. And the hydraulic pumps are on.
Bypass pin is installed. All doors and hatches closed.
Takeoff trim set, stabilizer trim set, flap takeoff
Cleared
selector
for start and push.
set, air condition off, fuel pumps are on, ignition selector system A, seatbelt signs are on. Let's verify the chocks are removed. They are not. Let's go to
Please release parking brake.
aircraft, ground. I don't see the chocks here. Okay, let's release the parking
Please release
brake.
parking brake.
Not sure if the chocks are removed as we start moving. There was
Please
no
release parking brake.
option to. Parking brake is released. There we
Please
go.
release parking
Again.
brake.
we are having that issue with the toolbar pushback every
Please
once in
release
a while.
parking brake.
So let's do this.
Please release parking brake.
Now it got stuck. Alright, this happens with toolbar pushback. So stop the
Ground.
pushback,
Please cancel pushback operation.
set the parking
Roger,
brake,
pushback cancelled.
and we will pre-plan again. Unfortunately this happens. Sorry that this happened while we are recording, or I am recording and you guys are watching, but it is what it is. Let's pre-plan quickly to somewhere like the same spot we pre-planned before and request pushback.
Cockpit to ground.
This is ground. Stand by.
Right, hopefully this time it will work. Everything over there checks. Have an issue this time. We might, I'm not sure, we'll see. Still have the charts, I'm not sure
Bypass
why,
brake is installed. All doors and hatches closed and all
and that
ground
might be our
equipment is removed.
issue.
We are cleared for start and push.
Okay, cleared for push start. Please release parking brake.
I am releasing the parking brake, but it's not detecting it for some reason.
Please release
Oh
parking brake.
no. There we go again. Alright guys, let me figure this out and I will come back.
Sequence.
It will start in the
I
sequence.
was able to work it out. I'm not sure what caused it, but now we are pushing back and we will start with the right engine. Starter switch to on, and we are monitoring the M1 here. Also the oil pressure and oil temperature. We have oil pressure, we have oil pressure, temperature increasing. M2 is getting to 20, and when we reach 20 we will introduce fuel by pressing this switch, and that should give us an engine start and we should see the EGT increasing. And if we go outside, we should be able to hear the engine. Not a whole lot though. Let's close that door. Window, not door. Okay, that's better. We are almost stable on the engine 2 or right engine, and we can go ahead and start engine number 1, left engine. Starter switch to off, close this, and do the same thing for engine number 1. Again, watching the oil pressure and oil temperature and EG and N2 and N1 rotation. Coming up to 20. Introducing fuel now. It's the engine start.
Okay, pushback completed. Please set your parking brake.
Alright, pushback is complete.
Parking brake set. Ground. Startup is complete. You may disconnect.
Roger, good engine start. Cleared to disconnect. See you at the side. Have a good
Alright,
flight.
we have engine
Holding
start.
position waiting for the visual. Thank you and goodbye.
We can go through the after start checks. APU bus switches to off. We have now engine generators online. Air conditioning supply to auto. That will give us the packs. APU air to off. APU master to off. Engine ignition selector to off. That is also guarded as well. P2 static goes to captain. Engine anti-ice, we don't need it. Auxiliary hydraulic pumps can be turned off now because we have engine hydraulic power. So transfer switch and auxiliary pump to off. Windows and doors closed. Pneumatic crossbead valves are closed. Open means that position, and if I open them, we will lose.
To
Oh no,
pull up and pick up your PCI
they are turned off now. Okay.
in the aircraft. Place your arms to the straps and
Windows and doors are locked. Spoilers
emergency exits aboard the aircraft.
aren't.
Two door exits at the front of the
Flaps will set the takeoff flaps.
one door exit and one tail cone exit at the
That should be one notch.
to locate your nearest
And we should see TO indicated here,
If there's a loss of electrical power,
right there.
low
That's
level
set.
emergency
Auto brake, and some models of this aircraft comes without the auto brake, so if you have one, that's where you arm it to move it to TO and arm it. Flight controls check, so we will bring the yoke back, and we have a master caution. ART, that's fine. Let's clear that. Full left, center, full right, center, full forward, center, full back, center, right rudder, center, left rudder, center. All checks, nose light to on, and actually that stays off until we get taxi clearance. Iberia 2600 ready to taxi.
Iberia 2600, taxi to runway 33 via taxiways Bravo, Victor, Lima, hold short runway 25 and runway 33.
Taxi to runway 33 via taxiways Bravo, Victor, Lima, hold short runway 25 and runway 33 Iberia 2600.
Right, that's the expected taxi route that we have discussed, so nose light comes to dim. And we are ready to taxi. We will hold the brakes to do a takeoff config check and advance the throttles to 80%. If you don't hear a horn, that means our takeoff config is fine. We'll take this right turn to Victor. From Bravo. Then we will continue to Lima and cross runway 25, so make this left turn, leaving Basel. Nice. Alright. We need to check the tower frequency, and that is looking 118.30. So let's get on the taxiway and do a better job with taxiing. Our ground speed is 13. Wow, that was a slope. 118.3. Set that here. Set. We are on Lima now, I guess, and we will probably cross runway 25. Let's keep going on here. The pilot to HTC is showing myself a different taxi routing, so it might not detect our position if we don't do what it instructs. And this is part of the problem with pilot to ATC. Sometimes you get weird taxi routing, but now it's asking us to turn. Take a left turn here, and let's check this taxi way number here. That's Alpha Bravo 1. Alright, it's asking us to go through here, interestingly, and we will do what it thinks we should be doing so that we get ground clear us to cross runway 25. There we go, that's what I was expecting. Strobes on, we are crossing the runway. It's runway 25, let's add some throttle to pass the runway or cross the runway quickly. Bring the throttles back to idle. Alright, we are almost at the hold short point after here. Maybe I didn't take the correct turn, but runway 33 is there, and we will just use this taxiway to get back on where we were. Actually, there's a turn here, so let's just make use of this turn. Some of the taxi markings are a little bit different, and not sure if the naming is same because they look different here, but whatever. It says F22. Wow, what are you doing, buddy? Alright, that's the hold short point. We will stop here and contact tower for our takeoff clearance after doing our pre-takeoff checks. Alright, let's stop here. That's good enough. Set the parking brake. Parking brake set. And before takeoff checks. Engine ignition selector to both. That's this guy here. Anti-ice not required. Flaps are set for takeoff. Auxiliary hydraulic and transfer pumps are on. Initiator panel is showing rudder traveler unrestricted. Park brakes on and arc in-up, that's correct. ATDC clearance for departure. Let's contact tower. Tower, good morning. Iberia 2600 holding short runway 33.
Iberia 2600, winds are light and variable, cleared for takeoff. Runway 33 squawk 5426.
Cleared for takeoff. Runway 33 squawking 5426 Iberia 2600.
Transponder goes to auto, strobes are on, nose light to bright, landing lights are extended and on. Terrain on the MD. Weather radar is on and traffic selected. It is in-op at this point. Transponder is set to TARA and we will now line up. There are different takeoff practices that I have seen in the videos. Let's add some throttle to line up. I think we have a slope. Aircraft is sliding back, parking brakes are off, and we are getting on the runway now. One of them is where the ART is on auto and you don't use flex temperature, and the other one is using flex temperature while the ART is turned off. We are gonna do ART off, and we are back, way back actually from where the runway number is. It's down there, but we know we are on runway 33, so we will start our takeoff run here. That will give us enough runway to take off. This is gonna happen very quickly, so I'm gonna stop here to talk a little bit. What we will do is we will increase the ERP to about 1.4 and arm the auto throttle, which then set takeoff thrust, and we will roll down the runway until we reach we rotate and rotate at about 15 degrees to take off, and we will retract the landing gear when we are, according to this, when we are at 2400, which is our thrust reduction altitude. We will select climb mode on the ERP and close the guard, and that is the takeoff. And then from there we will turn the autopilot on and be on our way. So press the toga button, that will put us into takeoff mode. Holding the brakes, checking the annunciations to make sure we don't have anything other than ART in-up, which is fine. Increasing throttles to about where we see 1.4 on the ERP gauge. At the top you see here, it's gonna start climbing a little bit faster after some point. Release the brakes and set the auto thrust. Forward pressure on the stick.
Takeoff thrust set.
Takeoff thrust set. Checked. Maintain the center line. A little bit stutter there. And it's displaying clamp 50, which means the auto throttle servos are disconnected and we can control the thrust to bring the aircraft to a stop. ADNOS checks, relieving the pressure in the event of a rejected takeoff, so that's what that annunciation means. Alright. Approaching V1. losing the center line a little bit.
V1. Rotate.
Rotate. We are pitching up to about 15 degrees, following the flight director there.
Iberia 2600, contact ball departure on
Positive rate.
124.1.
Gear is coming up.
Departure on 124.1 Iberia
The co-pilot should take care of the communications from now on.
Gear up.
Center
Lights out.
on 127.6, take center Iberia 2600, climbing to 5,000 feet.
Right, we are following the flight director, climbing and also gaining some speed. It says VOR fail, I'm not sure why, and then it starts to read it again. Okay, we are at 2400, climb mode selected, nav, and then we will select VNAV and autopilot goes in. We will control the speed and bring it down to 220, remember that.
Iberia 2600, good morning. Radar contact.
We are waiting for clean flap speed to retract the flaps.
Iberia 2600, climb and maintain 5,000 feet. Climb and maintain 5,000 feet, Iberia 2600.
Right. Flaps coming in. Slats are retracted now. Alright, let's get a nice view of the airport and we are on our way. Very nice. We should hear the ATC clearing us to higher altitudes very shortly. And that's what we are waiting. We are maintaining 220, which is great. Good at this point. Making our turn to our flight plan routing, which is hard to see here. But that's there. We can increase the range a little bit to see better, and I think I'm gonna keep the yoke out of the wheel now.
Iberia 2600, slow to 220 knots or less. Wilco Iberia 2600.
And that speed changed.
Iberia
I set it to 220.
Climb and maintain flight level 110. Climb and
Zero.
maintain flight level
Set.
110, Iberia 2600.
We are slowing to 220. At this point we can disarm the speed brakes, or the brake can go to off, and we'll go. Why are you going to 220? I'm setting it to 220 and it's going back to 250. Not sure why, but we'll see. Let's do the after takeoff checks. TRC is at climb, guard is closed. Alright, keeps going back to 250 for some reason. Flaps retracted, gear is up, and spoilers are disarmed. Flaps takeoff selector is stalled. It's happening. It's happening again. I'm not sure about this. Maybe I should select the speed and it should slow down. We have rain, but we will probably not need anti-ice just yet. Auto brakes are off. Hydraulic and transfer pumps can go off now.
Iberia 2600, expedite climb to flight level 110. Expedite climb to flight level 110, Iberia 2600.
Alright, we'll go back to 110. Ignition selector can go to off now. Anti-ice, we are probably not going to need it at this point. We don't need the terrain on our ND anymore. That can be turned off now. Annunciation panel is checked, no warnings. ATC TCAS on. Altimeters, we are approaching transition altitude. We will set the standard when we pass 7,000.
Iberia 2600, slow to 220 knots or
So it's still happening.
Welcome Iberia 2600.
It is still happening. I'm not sure why. I want to clear that restriction as soon as possible. Passing 7000. Set the QNH to 290902 or 1013. That's standard pressure. Same here. Right, that's set. This is the stabilizer trim that you are hearing. We can close or turn off the lights now. In this aircraft, I think you don't wait until 10,000 because these landing lights are retractable landing lights, and you don't want to damage those. And cabin pressure and passenger signs, we will wait until 10,000. And we'll check the cabin pressure. Cabin pressure is increasing. We are seeing a delta P, so that is looking okay. Team checks out now. Cabin temperature is good, and we are on our way. So that's after takeoff checks completed. Coming up to 10,000 now. Seeing some stutters here and there. One thing you need to do is just change this to flight mode, and we can get rid of the tablet for a while to enjoy the beautiful European scenery down below.
Iberia 2600, climb and maintain flight level 170.
170, set. Passenger signs go to auto. That's it. The aircraft will speed up or accelerate to 300 knots and then keep climbing. Alright guys, that is pretty much it for the takeoff and departure part of the flight. We will get more instructions from the ATC to climb higher and eventually get to our cruising altitude. And from there, I will bring you guys back and we will discuss the second part of this video, where we will be discussing top of descent, approach, arrival, landing, and what we need to do. We have cruise checks, and they are just TRC needs to be set to cruise, ART needs to be auto, speed selector is at VNAV, so we don't have to worry about it. Ignition selector, NTIs, passenger signs, etc. So nothing too crazy there. So hoping to see you in the next episode. Thanks for being here with me and watching the video. If you enjoyed what you have seen, please consider giving a like. It helps a lot and makes it possible to make this video reach other flight simmers who might be interested in the subject. And if you are not a channel subscriber but stumbled upon this video, please consider subscribing and turning on the notifications to get notified for future episodes.
Climb and maintain flight level 170. Climb and maintain flight level 170, Iberia 2600.
Check that. Okay, we are now climbing. Alright, being outside I forgot to check the altitude, but now we are climbing. All good, we just lost a couple seconds there. Alright guys, this is going to be it for this episode, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.